Hello RC fans, Racing 393, and welcome to episode 2 in my small little series trying to help newcomers into LMP12 indoor carpet racing. And episode 2, I've got to ask the question, does anybody out there suffer from droop? Oh, hang on. I need to phrase that slightly differently. Do you know what droop is and how to measure it? Let's find out.
Rear droop. What is it? Well, you can have droop any part of the car, but these small 1/12 racing cars, if you like, have rear droop. To explain what droop is, as in what is droop, I'll show you on another buggy. So I've got here my Fan RC, the fake graphite RC10, but still very good. So droop, now this hasn't got any weight in it, so it won't be as easy as it to show you as if it had something in it, but we'll go with it for now. So when you let the car settle on its natural position, i.e. like that, it comes up a bit, and the front. So that's sort of it sitting, it's basic at the moment, it's ride height. If I'm not going to measure it, because I'll do it on the 1/12 car, but the bottom of the chassis, in this case the clear plastic cover, to the floor, will measure X amount. It doesn't matter what this is, but between the bottom of the chassis, you can be even here at the back here, from the bottom of the chassis to the floor, you take a measurement. What you then do, I'll try and do it without, I don't know how to do it without being in the way, but when you lift the chassis up, it takes some lift, and then it just gets to a point where it will take the wheels off the ground. Then you measure it again from the bottom of the chassis to the floor, and the difference is your droop. Some buggies, it sits quite high now, doesn't it? I push it down at the back, that's its ride height, and then I'm not sure about I do this here, but if I lift it up from the bottom there, it goes up, and then it eventually takes the car off the ground. Just it's the difference between those two heights. Of course, there's quite a lot of droop in a buggy. Now some buggies, like a lot of the 1/8 scale buggies, inside on the, like for example the rear or the front pivot points, sometimes you'll get a grub screw which you can screw down, which changes the way the droop works. So if I could lift that up, but lift the back up, but limit how much this moves, like down, it goes quite a bit like that, doesn't it? Look, all the way down and all the way up. Maybe let me just zoom in a minute so you can perhaps see a little bit more. So we can limit how far this, you can do it in many different ways actually. Most of the buggies, the 1/8 buggies, have a grub screw inside there. If you screwed that down and lifted it up, it would get up so high, and then it will stop drooping, if you like. There won't be enough travel in this arm, this wishbone. So if I restricted it, you lift the back up and it will start lifting the wheel very early. Other ways you can do the droop, it's a bit of a crude way of doing it I suppose, but some people put spacers inside the shock absorbers themselves, so the shocks don't actually go to the full extent. But so yeah, now with the 1/12 car, you don't get this much luxury. So let me show you how I do the droop on my 112 car. So on this occasion, what I'm going to do is I will put the battery, excuse me, in the car, just to make it race weight ready. Okay, got the rubber there. That's to make no difference. That makes makes no difference to what I'm about to do. So there's not a lot of movement in these, and I need to get my ride height gauge. Just a second. So the droop can be adjusted by changing that spring. Just to backtrack, the droop is adjusted by this little grub screw here. So that is how you adjust your droop. So I did mention this, so it adjusts the car's handling quite a bit, and we start off with 1mm. So you set this, I'm reading it off my notes, the droop screw backed out and screw in to reduce the droop. So you can screw that down because it won't lift as much. I think I was mentioning this in when I demonstrated on the buggy. We either have like the grub screws that you screw in to reduce droop. It's exactly the same. And the ride height, and the difference in ride height to when you lift, take the weight off the car by lifting the rear set and damper, the wheels must still be just touching the floor. That will give you your droop. Exactly like a buggy. So to put it into perspective, less droop, so if you screwed that down it wouldn't move as much. Less droop makes the car more aggressive and squaring up the corners. So I think I was mentioning this spring as a droop spring. I called it a droop spring. In fact, that's a rear bump spring. So I just want to clarify that. So I'm zoomed right in. I'm hoping you can see this. So this spring, the pod spring, because that's part of the pod, the rear part of the sort of what holds the rear axle and sort of what is the rear suspension, if you like. So this pod spring can be changed. You can also tension that spring up by screwing that plastic nut downwards. This is from memory, this I've got it written down, but I think this is a standard spring. So from this position, ideally it'd be on a hard standing surface plate, but we'll just use this for now, it doesn't really matter. So what I would do is just move the car back and forth and push down on the pod here and let it settle. So that's its current ride height. I will then go just under the back of this car. I mean, it could ideally be this, but I'm a bit too close to this edge here, so I'm going to go in at a slight angle. It's all the same. I'll put this in, and that's currently reading 3mm. You then, in this car, the Schumacher, so that's got 3mm. I'll hold the centre shock absorber or damper, and I'm just going to lift this up until it just starts to lift the car very slightly, and I'm going to re-measure the underneath the back. Remember, it was 3mm. It's now 4mm. So that's 1mm of droop. Move that round again. Let it settle down. I'll re-measure that just to make sure it just grabs on the 3mm. Without putting my hand in the way, if you can see the back of the car, you're looking at this bit here, just under there. Can you see where the pointer is there? So I can't really get that. No, I can't really get that under it. So I'm just going to lift it from the centre damper, and it raises. You can see that raise. It's just got it, and I can get it under there now. So you're literally lifting this pod up. Now, there's a lot of other things that you can do for the Droop. That's how you measure it. Now, what does Droop do? Now that is a question. So effectively, rear Droop adjusts the balance of the car's handling. If you talk to anybody that knows anything about racing, a balance is from corner entry through to corner exit, and it also depends on the severity of that corner. So that's what we call balance. So you can adjust the balance of your car by adjusting the rear Droop.
The grub screw.
What it goes to, well, that's a little bit of a fine art, but basically less Droop. So if you run a stiffer spring, for example, it wouldn't lift it as much. It wouldn't lift that spring as much until it started to lift the car off the ground. But less Droop makes the car more aggressive. So with one of these, it would probably, again, my limited race experience, but a more aggressive car would turn and square the corners off. So as you turn in, it would turn in quite a lot, bringing the background and getting out of the corner. So running perhaps, I don't know, half a mil should make the car more angry on corner entry. If you run more Droop, so you can lift this up, and then these two, you've got the chassis and then you've got the pod, they could become quite close together. You have got another screw there which stops the chassis coming up and sandwiching the pod, so you can adjust that as well. But if you had more Droop, it gives less corner rotation, but it's easier to drive, so it's not as snappy as you're turning in. Basically, more Droop would also improve the car's bump handling. So more Droop, a bumpier track, more forgiving. So they always say at least start with 1 millimetre of Droop. So that will conclude my very quick Droop, get your hand out of the way, video. If you'd like to know a little bit more, ask someone that knows. Drop me a line. I do know, it's just that it's difficult to, off the cuff, to talk about it without getting anything wrong, but I do understand what I'm doing. So that's enough for Droop for now. Episode 3, we'll be talking about springs. So that's springs in the front, springs in the side pod, which would also include
bump spring.
So episode 3, springs. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more like this, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.